areas hardest hit by Hurricane Donna was Marathon Key. It was here that the eye of the storm hit, leaving that island about 90% destroyed.
This is how it looked before WTVJ newsmen as they drove through Marathon. The wind whipped through the island with demonic fury, twisting, crumbling, and destroying nearly everything in its path. A few boats were thrown up on the shore, landing in the streets and even on the tops of houses. Two housing developments west of Marathon Airport were completely whipped up. Roofs were ripped from their foundations, and cement block walls reduced to piles of rubble. Bridges are down and the whole area badly flooded. Residents, some of them, the few remaining, wandered around today and a daze, sifting through the remains of what used to be their homes and businesses. One man, a motel owner, predicted the storm would set Marathon back 20 years. Food and shelter are being provided on an emergency basis, and all public utilities have been locked out. Men from the Highway Patrol are patrolling the island today, trying to prevent looting. About 40 prisoners from the Monroe County Prison Farm were brought into Marathon early this evening to start clearing away the debris left by the storm. 400 or 500 trailers were completely destroyed, leaving an uncounted number of people homeless. The picture tonight is one of complete and utter destruction of Marathon. Damage is heavy in other sections of the Keys. In Tavernier, about 75 miles north of Marathon, much the same scene prevails. At Duck Key, the new and fancy Indies house has been left to shambles. The damage there estimated at about $1.5 million. The swimming pool is no more. One pilot flying over Flamingo in the northern, or rather the southern part of Everglades National Park reported the new motel there is wrecked. The marina has its roof completely blown off. A scene of devastation along the Keys not seen in many years.
On many of the Keys, there is little land separating the Atlantic Ocean from the Gulf of Mexico. When Donna whipped the high tides over these Keys, the Atlantic and the Gulf became at once one body of water. It was miraculous more people were not killed. Nearly 400, you'll recall, lost their lives in the hurricane of 1935, most of them construction workers, but then there was no adequate advance warning system. Evacuation was not carried out. This time, the National Hurricane Warning Center at Miami provided a minute-by-minute track of the storm. The weathermen knew what the hurricane was going to do almost before Donna knew it. Many homes have been washed away. On Craig Key, for example, buildings have just disappeared. It's not known if there were any persons in these buildings. Some of the wrecked structures have been inaccessible up to now, but the fate of all those who remain behind will be known as rescue workers comb through all the debris. Miraculously, then, no serious injuries have been reported. The death count is extremely low, considering the magnitude of the property damage in the Keys, which will run way up into the millions. What happened in the Keys proves the value of heeding the advice of the Weather Bureau and the other authorities when it comes to evacuating. When they say get out, they know what they're talking about. The pictures in this program tonight were flown to Miami on one of the first planes to depart from Marathon after the storm. It is impossible to drive to Marathon because several bridges have been washed out. Here's one at Tavernier, and the overseas pipeline to Key West has been broken in several places, and the Keys, including Key West, will be without water from a period of a week and a half until 2 weeks. The main structure of this bridge held firm, as you can see, but the approach was destroyed by winds and water. The Florida Highway Patrol has a roadblock up at Florida City and is prohibiting any traffic southward to the Keys at this time. Most of the residents of the Central Keys area did evacuate. In our studio tonight, we have with us some residents of Marathon where that devastation occurred, and those pictures you saw a moment ago were taken. We also have with us one gentleman who rode out the storm in Marathon, operating an amateur radio station in that city. I'd like to introduce that gentleman to you. First of all, Mr. Tony Polis of Tavernier. He's a ham radio operator, station K4ENN, and assistant chairman of radio communications of the American Red Cross Disaster Committee at Tavernier. Tony, what was your estimate of the winds at the height of the storm?
We estimated between 160 and 170 miles per hour.
I believe you were the one who radioed the first reports of the disaster from down in the Keys. Could you give us just a brief rundown of your eyewitness report on what happened at Tavernier?
Well, we couldn't see very much. We got down, we arrived about approximately 1 o'clock in the afternoon. We set up the radio station, installed the antenna. We inside made our first contact with Miami. We were in constant communication with Miami until approximately 10 o'clock at night. And then the band changed, the skip came in, and we relayed to a station in Virginia. We had a station in Virginia heard us, and they relayed it back to Miami, to the Red Cross headquarters.
There was one report that came out during the evening which indicated that there might have been several casualties down in Tavernier. Was that the initial information you had?
That's true at first. We thought there were, because several of the families refused to leave the buildings, leave the houses, and go to the shelter. And our first observation, we saw that the houses were completely demolished after the storm struck. And we were under the impression that they were still in the house, but evidently they did move before the house was demolished.
That seems to be one of the remarkable things about this storm, is the destruction and devastation of most of the buildings down there, and yet there were hundreds of people who remained behind. Where did they stay and yet escape harm?
We had two shelters in the area. One was a large cement building, 75 tons of iron in it. I think a 1.5 foot reinforced concrete walls. We had 87 people in that building. And we had about approximately 75 in another warehouse further down the road.
What was the scene at sunup today in Marathon, or when the wind and rain subsided and you had a chance to, at Tavernier, to look around?
It was very bad. We surveyed at the first sign of daylight. We found one trailer park completely demolished. Trailers were scattered over a wide area. The wooden ones had splintered, and the furniture was in the road, in the fields, in the road. And, some of them were on top of each other. We went to another area, and there were approximately 6 houses, and each one had been moved off the foundations from 50 to 75 feet. 2 of them had rolled over and were upside down, and 2 were on their sides. There was one other area, a small area, further to the south, was completely untouched.
Is the highway from Tavernier northward to Miami passable?
Passable with difficulty. There were several obstructions. Roof of one building was in the middle of the road. A little further on, there was a 40-foot bolt crossways in the road. There were several refrigerators, washing machines, various articles of furniture in the road that we had to detour to go around.
Some of the more interested people in what happened down in the Keys were a group of residents who evacuated the area, came to Miami, and stayed in a hotel here and just sat and waited and feared the worst but hoped for the best. Del Frank will introduce the Marathon residents.
Well, Ralph, we talked to them immediately before the program. And one of those we talked to was the daughter of the chairman of the Civil Defense at Marathon, Miss Gail Trandell, in the studio. Hello, Gail.
Hello.
We talked to you earlier about your conversation with your dad about 11 o'clock this evening. About an hour ago, you talked to him. What did he say about the scene, the picture there in Marathon this afternoon when everybody had a chance to get out and evaluate the damage?
Well, he said that the property on the Gulf side was damaged very badly. He said that the place across the street from us, which was on the Gulf, there was nothing left but a shell there. It was a motel and a yacht base, and Hanley's across the street from us had around $30,000 worth of damage just on the back side of it. And Hall's Camp, just a little ways across from us, lost 6 units there, motel units, and 3 trailers were in there. The people that lived there were turned over and damaged pretty badly. Tarpon Lodge was supposed to have gone, vanished. Fred Centers, boat rental there, his house completely disappeared, and overseas boat rental.